the days continue to go by, and I, as well as probably most of you, are watching the events that are happening in Israel. What can we do in this day? What is it? What is our response? Well, I think that one of our greatest responses is to continue to look into the Word, because as I was reminded last week regarding a rabbinical, this came from Moshe Kempinski, a rabbinical statement that the steps of the forefathers become our mileposts of life. This is another way of looking at the scriptures in Corinthians, which say that these things are prefigurative historical events. And so we need to continue in the Word. I think that we need to probably be spending more time in the Word than we are in the news, because the Word we know is always true. The news, well, it's kind of it depends on the day and the channel that you're watching. So I want to go into this, of course, regarding Israel. I'll be as soon as I get finished with this recording, I'll be doing a monthly message, and that will be sent out if anyone would like to get a copy of that, either on MP3 or CD. That'll be available through our website in just a couple days, probably by the time this message is actually online. And continuing to broadcast Israel Update with Hanok. There's various, and we're not just doing the facts and figures of the you can get from the news, but the behind the scenes story. Hanok was just up on the Temple Mount a few days ago, and we'll be talking about that. Of course, with this week, it's kind of a grievous week for me, is because normally about this time I would be, as soon as I turn off the camera here and get everything going into the computer, I would be packing to leave this coming Sunday and take 29 people on a tour of Israel. Well, of course, that's been canceled. Actually, it's been postponed, and we're already working on the dates for that. If you're interested in a tour in April, probably the first part of April or also September, please let me know. I'll be glad to put you on a list there. All right, well, let's get into this wonderful Torah portion of He Appeared. It says, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the entrance to his tent during the heat of the day. Now, I have taught numerous times on the word see, and it is the word ra. It has numerous meanings, and I think that this week it brings out so much. In that this is the word see, yes, with the physical eyes, to look at with the physical eyes, but to perceive, to consider, or to discern. First time it's used is Genesis chapter 1, verse 4, and he saw the light, and it was good. And so it is not just that Abram is sitting there and he's looking at the surroundings, but he is perceiving the surroundings. And we're going to get a bit of an insight into this when we look at the words here of, he sat at the oaks of Mamre. Now, King James translates this as plains. The word is specific, I believe, and it means oak or a large tree. I'll get to that in just a moment. And if we go back to the last week's Torah portion, we see that he was also at a place called, that this word, the same wording is used here. He was at Elon Moreh, the oak of Moreh, the tamarisk tree of Moreh. And the word Moreh means teacher. It also means early rain, and we could consider it as the early rain coming down upon a seed. And so the words given to Abram at the time, now we have him as Abraham. Abram is that he is, in going to that place, it's like a seed being planted. And that seed would come forth because of the early rain, because he accepted the promise that had been given to him on Elon Moreh. One of the issues that is happening today is that people are not accepting. They're looking at the words but not accepting that promise. that was given to Abraham, or to Abram. I get confused back and forth myself there. They're not accepting that promise as theirs. The land of Israel, as those of us who are grafted in, adopted, or have not replaced Israel, but I believe have become a part of Israel, that land is also a part of our inheritance. But inheritance must be accepted. When if you have someone in your family that dies and you go for the reading of the last will and testament, the lawyer can sit there and read that this is what your inheritance is, but if you don't ask you have to receive that. You have to give them a bank account number, a routing number, so that those things that are your inheritance can be received by you. A lot of people read the words, but never receive the words as their own. Now, we go from Elon Moreh to the oak of Mamre, which is the word there, Mamre, is strength or vigor. It is a word that is, well, let's look at it this way. And we know the events that are going to happen in Abraham's life as we move forward, in that he is going to, him and Sarai are going to have a son named Isaac. This is going to be when both of them are well beyond childbearing years. And so what do we see here? That first of all, there was a seed. The word was planted into his life. And that seed grew because of Abram's accepting of that seed. And that brought forth strength and vigor into his life. It's a very simple teaching. I think we can go to Psalm 23 and probably 1,000 other places in the Word. But his Word restores. In this day, I find it very difficult sometimes to just function. I have the Red Alert app. I'm doing all of these teachings. I'm keeping up with the news and all of those things. And there comes a moment in time that you're just like, I can't function right now. The best thing to do is open up the Word. If you're having a hard time functioning in these days, try going through the Psalms again. You might find strength in that place. A little side issue there. Now, the word oak here is interesting. It is Aleph Lamed Vav Nun. I'm not going to go into the pictogram there specifically, but it is a terebinth tree or a tamarisk tree. When I read the word oak, a couple things come to mind for me. Is growing up in North Florida, we had live oaks. And these are huge trees with the Spanish moss hanging off of them, of course. Or we used to go hunting over on the west coast of Florida, there was the scrub oaks. And neither one of them look anything like the tamarisk tree that is in Israel. So we have to, first of all, and this is why not to give a commercial here, but this is why a trip to Israel, a biblical trip, not going and seeing Constantine's mother's sites, but a biblical trip to Israel is so important to us because it changes the pictures. I'm talking to people right now that went with me last year to Israel for the first time, and they're like, I'm so glad I went, because now the news, I'm looking at it different. I've got the picture in my head. I can see that place. These places that they're talking about in Scripture. And so we've got to get this mindset out of our mind and put in something different. And you can actually go online and type in Oak of Mamre, and it brings up a couple of different places because we're not really sure. But both places are very similar. There's places where there's huge oaks. One of them specifically is known as the Oak of Abraham. The other one is again, we're not really sure, but both of these are ancient trees that are there. And the word oak, well, let me get to that in just a moment. What's the setting? So both of these places that you see online are south of Hebron. So it appears, I want to just paint you a picture here, it appears that Abram, at the time, now Abraham, pitched his tent south of Hebron. Maybe just a short distance, but south of what is now Hebron. And as he pitched his tent, he was looking, it says that he was sitting he sat in the entrance of his tent during the heat of the day, which means that he was looking north. If he was looking toward Hebron, his tent would have been pitched with the door facing north, which is facing toward the cave of the patriarchs. Now, at that day when Abram is there, it is not in his possession. It is believed, I tend to agree with this statement, and this is why we will read later on in next Torah portion, in the next Torah portion, that Abram came to this place and wanted specifically to buy that cave and that field, is because this is where Adam and Eve were buried. And so, get the picture here. He's sitting there looking toward that cave, that field, but the door of his tent is pitched toward Jerusalem. He has just had an encounter with Melchizedek, the one who is the priest and king of Salem, Jerusalem, and so he is positioning himself, looking toward the roots in which he came from, and the place in which he is going, the kingdom. More to say about that in just a little while. Now, the word oak, Aleph, Lamed, Vav, and a final noon. If we look at the root of that word, it is Aleph, Vav, Nun, which is the word for a ram, or a ram's skin. It is the word that's used in Exodus chapter 25 regarding the tabernacle of the ram's skin, which was dyed red. Okay, now does anybody need me to really go into this? That that Abraham is sitting at the door of his tent. He's looking toward Jerusalem, the place of Melchizedek, the priest and king of Jerusalem. And between him and that place is a tamarisk tree. A tree whose the meaning of the root word is a ram. So Abram is going to, again in this Torah portion, he is going to encounter the wood of a tamarisk tree maybe, and a ram, but he's already encountered it. Because he's sitting at the entrance to his tent, and he is perceiving, he is considering, he is discerning that which is between him and the kingdom, which is a picture of a ram and a tree. I don't think that I need to paint that any clearer than that one. Now, let me go on so I can get through the rest of this and get to the ram. In chapter 18, we see that there's 3 visitors that came to Abraham, I'll get it right eventually, there's 3 visitors that came. Now, as I read this, there's no way around me seeing. I cannot unsee that it is 2 angels and a pre-incarnate representation of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. And the sideline teaching of that is this, that when you are looking toward the kingdom, you will have a visitation of the one of the kingdom. When you pitch your tent in Sodom and Gomorrah, you might have a couple angels visit. Okay, so that's just a little sideline there. Now, this has been, I would just want to bring out some of the craziness of our day. It says that he offered, bread and a little bit of milk or whatever, and then he fixes a whole meal, which is a lamb, a kid, and is also he brings wine. He sets out an absolute spread in front of these 3, and this has been used to say, well, those kosher dietary laws of not separating or of separating milk and meat. Abraham offered them, the angels, the messengers, he offered them cheeseburgers. That's kind of, in my mind, the height of stupidity. Because if we look at the story here, it takes time between the serving of the dairy products and the serving of the meat. Now, I don't personally agree with the, I can see this. This is not a practice that Kathy and I do, but I can see the benefits of it. I don't see the verse in Leviticus as talking about the separating of milk and meat. I see it as a pagan practice, but at the same time, for those that see it that way, I will defend totally and completely their right to walk that practice out. What I will not defend is using verses like this totally out of context in order to prove your point. So that's, again, that maybe not, didn't really mean anything, but I wanted to throw it in. Now, the story is just funny. And I can see why Sarah laughs, okay? I hope you can too, because she's being told something. Abraham is being told something. She's hearing it. It's like, a child, huh? Okay, have you noticed how old I am? Have you gotten the chronological things? Have you noticed that there's certain things about my life that were not in my life a few years ago? And the angels telling me that you put yourself in that scenario, okay? Consider the nightly news, and a lady that's over 90 years old with a husband that's over 90, they're once again called mom and dad. Yeah, I kind of laugh at that too. Well, let's look at this a little bit. It says in verse 17, so Sarah laughed to herself, thinking, I am old, and so is my Adonai, and am I to have pleasure again? Okay, you know what that means. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and ask, am I really going to bear a child when I'm old? Is anything too hard for Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh? At the time set forth, at this season next year, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah denied it, saying, I didn't either laugh because she was afraid. He said, oh, no, not so. You did laugh. It's amazing when we try to get ourselves out of those things, instead of understanding that the Father allows questioning. Okay, faith does not mean that we're not allowed to try to figure things out. But in the end, and here's a statement I coined years ago. I hope I can get it right. Faith reserves the right to question. But when there is no answer, what does faith say? Well, in order for us to get a good answer to that, let's go over to Luke chapter 1, and let's see, where am I at? Luke chapter 1, verse 37, and you go to 36. You have a relative, Elisheva, who is an old woman. Everyone says she is barren, but she has conceived a son and is 6 months pregnant. For with Elohim, nothing is impossible. Okay? Nothing is impossible. Miriam said, I am the servant of Yehovah. May it happen to me as you have said. And the angel left her. So faith reserves the right to ask questions. But when there is not an answer that is that makes any sense to us, faith says, be it unto me according to your will. Because nothing in the end is impossible. And maybe that does bring a little laughter at times. But to try to look at him and say, I know that I have to have everything by faith and never question. No, that's never question. That's not biblical, folks. We go through things in our lives. We go through times. We go through things that it doesn't make sense. But it doesn't have to make sense. See, when I give up that need for everything to make sense, I don't understand why things are happening in Israel like they are today. I understand that he's not asking my opinion. You will know when he starts asking my opinion, because that's when things are really going to be messed up. He doesn't ask my opinion about things. And that's good, because he sees a picture that I don't. I had someone that sent me something about a website, and it was another timeline. Well, I've looked at timelines through the years, and okay, I don't allow people to laugh at someone, to me, that has a timeline. I'm okay, because see, I respect their desire to see things as maybe Daniel did, and to try to discern the times that we're in. But in the end, right now, given what is happening around us, I don't have time right now to spend hours looking at something that it just, for me today, is not really that relevant. I'm looking more at the scriptures of Yeshua when he says, take no thought, or don't worry about what is going to happen a few years down the line. You need to look at today. There's enough evil in the world today for us to deal with. So when you get today figured out, and you got a little extra time on your hands, then yeah, maybe look at tomorrow. But for right now, today is about all that I can handle on a daily basis. So our response, again, is faith reserves the right to ask questions. But in the end, when there is no answer, our answer should be it unto me according to your will. Now, we go from there into Sodom and Gomorrah. Oh yeah, we could probably, I could spend a lot of time right now with the events of Sodom and Gomorrah and all that was happening in that day, and the pronouns that they were using, and it was pretty woke culture. They would wake up to fire coming down from the sky, but it was probably very similar to what we have today. The rabbinic look at this is that Sodom and Gomorrah's greatest sin was a lack of hospitality, which is caused by, the root of that is thinking of yourself before you think of others. If I go to someone's house and they don't even offer me a glass of water, are they thinking about me? Am I feeling welcome there? No, absolutely not. If I have to ask, you might want to check out your hospitality a little bit. Now, I appreciate when I go to somebody's house and they say, my casa, your casa, or my bait, your bait, however that would be in Hebrew. Just help yourself. Okay, great. That's wonderful. But at least show me where the refrigerator is. Okay. I've been to places that it was like, I've been there for like a half an hour after I was speaking somewhere. Excuse me, do you have a glass of water? Oh, yeah. The glasses are over there and the sink is there, and it's okay. Sodom and Gomorrah lost their sense of looking out for others, became self-centered, and self-centeredness leads to debauchery. And therein is a picture that is laid out for us in, in 2 Timothy chapter 3, of people that would be self-loving, and this is where it ends up going. In the midst of this is this guy Abraham that steps in and begins this negotiation process with the Almighty. And we all know it. If there's 50 righteous, and what if there's 40 righteous, and what if there's 30 righteous, or 20, and what if there's 10? Abraham is betting on that. Let's see, it's Lot and his wife and the two girls, and they probably have some husbands or something about now, so there's 6, and they must have influenced at least 4 other people, so that would be 10. Well, the truth is that Lot didn't influence anyone, including himself. Lot's totally different from Abraham in that when Abraham pitches his tent, he does so toward his ancestors of the cave of Machpelah and the kingdom in the distance. On the other hand, we see Lot, who pitches his tent toward Sodom and Gomorrah. Where the door of your tent is facing is where you will be destined for. Where you pitch your tent, the direction you pitch your tent in. Am I talking about last Sukkot? No. But, when I do a Sukkot somewhere, I teach people, pitch your tent toward Jerusalem. So when we were in Oklahoma, we had 100 people on our property, and every one of them had their tent door facing Jerusalem. It was a great sight. It's where you pitch your tent toward is where you will end up living. And it happened with Sodom and Gomorrah and with Lot. Now, I have to tell you, quite honestly, I don't have what Abraham had here. I read these scriptures, and it's beyond what is a part of my personality today. I would love to have this kind of compassion. I don't. When I look towards Sodom and Gomorrah today, and I see the debauchery, I see the abuse, I see the trafficking, I see the outcome of lives, I don't have it within me to pray for negotiations. I would have, if it was me, right or wrong, if it was me, I would have gone through, forgotten all of that, and said, just let me get out of the way, okay? Kill them all. Kill them all. You wouldn't want me to be in charge of the Gaza war right now. Maybe some of you would, probably. But I have no compassion for what is happening in the world. I have no compassion over those who will stand in the streets when a rocket is fired toward from the land of Israel into the land of Israel. I have no compassion for those who are standing in the streets and cheering, but yet are portrayed by the media today as just helpless, innocent victims. It's not there. The end result you and I know of, in that Lot's life determined the destiny of his family, not his words. Now, Lot was known as righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah. To be called righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah is not really a great compliment. This would be like being in a prison of murderers, and well, I only killed one. Oh wow, you're pretty righteous, opposed to the rest of us. Being righteous in our day, setting our righteousness based upon comparing it to others, it's pretty easy for me. Pretty easy for any of us probably. You know, I don't do Sundays. I don't. Today, as I'm recording, is October 31st. There's no decorations in my yard. There will be no decorations in my yard. I will not condone decorations in my yard. I won't. We don't have any kids that come here, but I wouldn't answer the door anyway. It's easy to be self-righteous in our day if we compare ourselves to those around us. But what if we begin to compare ourselves with the holiness of the Almighty? It kind of changes things a little bit. Let's not compare ourselves with our neighbor, but compare ourselves with our Creator, which would maybe cause our lives to change a little bit in the end. Lot was preaching righteousness in Sodom and Gomorrah, thinking that his words were going to change things, but his lifestyle, it appears, was not in keeping with his words, to the fact that his wife would be drug out of Sodom and Gomorrah, would end up turning into a pillar of salt. It's kind of strange. But she would have to be drug out. The girls would be drug out. They would survive. But yet, what was their lives about? Now, regarding their lives, regarding the daughters of Lot, let's give them a little bit of a break. Because generations continuing on, be fruitful, multiply. This was what life was. You know, if a woman was barren, it was different than it was. You didn't just, say, well, I've decided not to have children. You didn't do that in that day, because, and this is not a statement regarding that, but it was just the culture of that day was to be fruitful and to multiply. And here is the setting of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot and his two daughters are taken out, and they're sitting there in this cave or whatever it is, and it's like, life's over. they're still thinking, they still have been introduced possibly to to Seth, who has, was it Seth or Shem? Shem. They may have been introduced to him and had firsthand accounts of the flood. And so in their mind, they're thinking it's over again. Yeah, he promised that he would not destroy the earth with water again, but he did say it would be fire. And so here's the fire. The world is ending, and we have no descendants. That's it. Okay, so give them a little bit of a break here in this. In the end, here's one that's in my mind is really crazy. The older one gave birth to a son and called him Moab. He is the ancestor of Moab to this day. Moabite. Where is it? Ruth? A Moabite? Moabitess? So the lineage of Messiah came out of Sodom and Gomorrah? Oh, that's like, how's that happen? How in the world can the Almighty take something like Sodom and Gomorrah and find righteousness and bring forth the message of the Messiah, which will be a blessing to all the nations? Oh, wait a minute. That's a picture of me. That's a picture of my life. That's a picture of maybe your life. That we were saved out of a place of Sodom and Gomorrah. We were saved out of a place of sin, a place of debauchery. I know the testimonies. I've sat and talked with people. We've sat at people's homes over a glass of wine and started sharing the war stories of where we came from. And yeah, it's like I don't think I want to compare myself there. And it's can be pretty bad at times. That was our Sodom and Gomorrah. But yet, he brought us out of that Sodom and Gomorrah, out of that destruction, and brought us into a place of being able to receive the message of Messiah, being brought into the lineage of inheritance of the Messiah, and to one day be seated with him in the heavenly realm. Okay. You want to explain that to me? Go ahead. I'm having a little hard time understanding it, but I accept it because that's what faith is all about. Now in chapter 21, we see the birth of Isaac. Of course, his name means laughter. There's great joy in the camp, except for there's a problem in the camp, and his name is Ishmael. The sins of our past somehow keep sporting with us, do they not? In this is chapter 21 and verse 9, but Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, who Hagar had borne to Abram, making fun of Isaac. The King James, I think, says sporting. And it is, when we trace this word, it is the same as, was it Isaac and his wife were sporting? Okay, you know the meaning of that? They were flirting with each other in a way that was obvious that they were not brother and sister. And so this is tied to the thought that Ishmael is making advances, family show, making advances on Isaac in a sexual manner. If we look at the prophetic picture here of Ishmael and later on with Esau being being the shadow of what is happening today in Gaza. The Palestinians, the Philistines, the place where, if you look at the history of these people, they were known for kidnapping. They were known for debauchery. They were known for raping. I mean, nothing's changed, guys. Nothing has changed. And so today, what do we have? We have Ishmael making fun of Isaac with kidnapping and everything that is going on here. We all have, I would imagine, I could say this, I think that everybody here would agree with this. We all have Ishmaels in our past, things that continue to sport with us, that continue to give us memories. The greatest thing that we can teach to our children is to be honest with them about the reason for keeping their lives pure. And I'm not just talking in a sexual manner, but keeping their eyes on their Creator, on His Word, because the memories are the things that, you may be forgiven, but it still follows you through your life. Let us counsel our youth, our children, in such a way that maybe they could get to where we are with less memories, to use a word on this day, haunt them. So Ishmael must be dealt with. Abraham does. Ishmael is not put to death. In fact, Ishmael is given a promise, as Esau would be given a promise. The promise is basically this, that you are going to be banished until you come into authority of your brother. Today, let me tell you how to bring an end to the war in Israel in a moment. The mental midgets of the media and politics, I listen to them and they don't understand, because they don't understand God. And if you don't understand the Creator, the Almighty, the Holy One of Israel, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if you do not understand Him and His message, you cannot understand what is going on today in the Middle East or in this world. I will tell you how to bring peace in a moment. It is not by the re-election or the election of a different president or prime minister. If today Hamas and the Palestinian Authority and the people of Gaza, Judea, Samaria, and the surrounding Arab countries that are Islamic, if they would submit themselves to the authority of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, there would be repentance on their part, and the war would be over in a moment. The reason for the war is that Ishmael is still fighting that authority. The reason for the war is that Esau is still fighting that authority. And I guess we could say in the end, the authority that is the head, political head, and in many ways the religious head of Israel is also not submitting fully to that authority. Let you think about that on your own. Chapter 22, we know this, the story. This is one that I love to. This is difficult for me to read, because to look at, to teach on, because it would be next week that I would be standing in Jerusalem on the Haas Promenade and teaching this exact experience here of how Abraham was told to take your son, your only son, to take him to Mount Moriah, to a place that I believe he had been before, a place that Isaac had been before, a place that Ishmael had been before. Ishmael has rejected the covenant of the sacrifice that was given on Mount Moriah. Isaac has been there. He's watched his dad go through that sacrifice over and over again. And that is why he says, Dad, I see the wood. I see the knife. I see all the things, but where is the lamb? Where is the ram? I see the tree. I see the wood. But I don't see the ram that is going to be placed upon the wood. But see, Abraham had already seen that. Abraham had already seen that. And that is why when he comes up to that place that today is the Hos Parmenade, and he looks out and he says to the men, he says, stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go there, worship, and return to you. Because he saw the sheen in the valleys. I'm not going to go into this whole teaching. He saw the sheen in the valley, the three valleys of the topography of Jerusalem. And because of that, the sheen, which basically is he is the provider. He could look and say, you guys stay behind, me and the boy. We're going to go worship, and then we're going to come back here and rejoice with you. Now, he says, and this is down to verse 14, Abraham, this is after he sees the ram that was caught in the thicket. The thicket is a type of wood. A brush. Brush is a type of wood. And so the ram that is caught in the brush is then placed upon the tree. And he says, Abraham called this place Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh-Yireh, which means Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh will see to it. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh provides. It is said, as it is said to this day, on the mountain, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is seen. This is where the Torah portion began, of Abraham sitting, looking toward his heritage and looking toward his destination. I'd like to go over to the book of Hebrews to finish up today. In Hebrews chapter 12, anybody that knows me knows this is one of my favorite chapters in all of Scripture. It's one that gives me great faith and comfort in these days. It says in Hebrews chapter 11, starting in verse 8, by faith or trusting, Abraham obeyed after he had been called to go out, Lech-Lekah, to a place which God would give him as a possession. Indeed, he went out, Lech-Lekah, without knowing where he was going. By faith, he lived as a temporary resident in the land of promise, as if it were not his, staying in tents with Isaac and Yaakov, who were to receive what was promised along with him, for he was looking forward to the city whose builder and maker was Elohim. That verse, if I'm right, is speaking of this Torah portion, when he sat in his tent and looked toward Hebron and looked toward Jerusalem, looked toward Melchizedek, the one who would be on the throne. It goes on, and where was I going to go? I guess that was it. He lived as a temporary resident. Read the account there of Abraham in Hebrews chapter 11. Sorry, I think I said chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 11. He was looking for a city. There's where I was going. He was looking for a city whose builder and maker was Elohim. It basically says this, guys. He kept his eyes on the kingdom. The days that we're in, Yeshua said in Matthew chapter 24, there's coming a day that will be worse than has ever been, and it will never be again. There will be a day that will be worse than Pearl Harbor. There will be a day that will be worse than the Shoah, the Holocaust. Anybody I heard somebody say last night that thank God that most of the people who were in the Holocaust have passed away because of the memories that this brings up. If you've ever studied the Shoah, the Holocaust, what is happening today is worse than that. We wonder how it could get any worse than it is today. Yeshua said these things must come. There's no reason to pray it away. There's a reason for us to say, how can I be of service in the midst of this, sir? But the way to get through these days is to do what our father Abraham did. Keep our eyes on the kingdom. Shavua Tov, Shabbat Shalom. Pray you have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem. God willing, see you again next week. Stay tuned. Life on Purpose last night was amazing. The guys did an amazing job. I really challenge you to go listen to it. We talked about how our young people should be looking at the days that we're in. I'll be recording with Barry, with Honok, with the Israel Update. We're trying to keep you informed to the best of our ability in all the programming that we're doing. So with that, please take these broadcasts that we put out there, share them on your social media site, share them with other people, tell them about it. Guys, you got a voice. But that voice is no good unless we use it. All right? So till next week, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.